Well, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by everything you're hearing about coronavirus right now. But what about children? Experts say having an open, supportive discussion with your children can help them understand, cope, and even make a positive contribution for others. Dr. Joanne Orlando is a leading expert in children and technology from Western Sydney University, and she joins me now live. Dr. Orlando, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thanks, Danica. My pleasure.
Firstly, how does this 24/7 news cycle that we're seeing right now about COVID-19 affect children?
Well, a lot. Children might be sitting down and watching the news, but they're seeing it on TV screens, they're seeing it when they go online, they're hearing it on the radio, they're seeing headlines in newspapers. We are surrounded by this 24-hour news cycle, and right now it's about COVID, and it's quite kind of scary. It's scary for adults. We're all a bit worried and anxious about it. And while children don't read the news normally, probably because they don't have the literacy levels and the interest, they're very aware of the kind of ideas that are coming out of the news and that sense of fear and uncertainty. And they're also seeing it in the adults who are important to them. So their parents talking about it, they're seeing changes at school, they're getting lots of things from their teachers and schools or their preschool teachers about it. So they can't really escape it. So they're getting this idea that things have changed. Everyone's a little bit worried about it, but they don't have the full facts like we do. So they can be even more fearful than we think they are.
Does this, I guess, amount of misinformation, if they're hearing things from one person from the other, they might not be able to interpret it, as you said, like you and I can. So would that affect them as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like even adults are having trouble differentiating between the massive amount of misinformation that's online about COVID and the true facts. So there's a lot of confusion about what's real, what's not real. And of course, as adults talk about it and then they change what they're saying, children can get really confused about that, as you'd expect. So it leads to even more kind of fear and anxiety about, well, what's really happening to my world? Because for children, it's all about protecting themselves. That's what childhood is. If you think of it from a child development point of view, children are very protective of themselves. So they would be really worried here that something is going to happen to them. They take it very personally. And if it's not something that's going to happen to them, it's something that might happen to the people who look after them, like their parents, like their teachers. So it becomes this kind of sense of anxiety. Am I going to be okay? Are the people that I love going to be okay as well?
Should we be protecting children then from seeing the news about the virus?
Yeah, it seems like the natural instinct, doesn't it, to protect them, but I think it's just too hard. There's too much news around, and it doesn't really help to necessarily alleviate their fears and anxieties as well. So what's really important is to talk to them about what's happening with COVID and to do it in a very age-appropriate way. So if you have like a 5-year-old, it would be talking about things like, there's a disease going around, it's very catchy. People are being asked to stay inside so they don't catch it from each other. Being asked to stay home from school, we're staying home from work so that we can stop the spread of it. That's essentially what it's about, and that's very age appropriate for a child to understand, and it takes some of the fear out of it from them as well, because they'll be able to relate to that kind of conversation.
Some great advice. Have you got any advice for parents or guardians whose children are potentially showing fear or uncertainty? Is there a way that they can speak to them about COVID-19 or pick up the signs that they're in distress?
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to your child regularly about it. It's just not a one-off conversation, because we can see that the whole circumstance around COVID keeps changing. So talk to them regularly. Just be very careful about inciting fear, like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Don't say that kind of thing. You're the one who needs to have control and who needs to alleviate that fear and that stress for them. And just helping them to understand what's happening and the changes, and things like the government is looking after us and schools are looking after us and doctors are looking after us, so that your child knows that someone is actually taking action and taking control and trying to make the situation better. That's really important for children.
Now, children are now probably spending more time on technology, given a number are more homebound, a number of schools are closing. How can parents deal with excessive screen use during this period?
Oh, it's really hard. I think that your normal screen time rules are not going to work in this kind of environment. So, what's better to think about this and to still approach it in healthy ways is to think about, well, how much time, but also the quality of what your child is doing online. What are the actual apps that they're using or the things that they're viewing online? Is it educational? Is it helping them to be creative, to problem solve, to think? And also, who are their screen buddies? So, are they going online with someone? It might be with their classmates in online learning, it might be with their brother playing a game, it might be with you doing something online. We don't want children in their bedrooms, 6, 7 hours a day alone online. That's not healthy for anyone. So, think of also who they're online with. It's just another way to help keep those healthy approaches at home.
A tricky one to juggle at the moment, I can imagine. Now, Dr. Orlando, in terms of the homeschooling aspect of it, what should we expect online lessons to look like or to be like?
Yeah, well, every school's doing it a little bit different. Some schools are using their learning management system that they've normally been using. Other schools are using Zoom, and a child will go onto a video conference with their teacher at the beginning of a lesson, and then the teacher might put things up online for the child to do during the day, and then they hand it in. Some schools are having check-in times, so if a child is just feeling a little bit anxious around homeschooling, there's a time when they can check in with a counsellor. Schools are putting kind of PE lessons up online to keep children active and moving. So schools are really working hard to do this. I'm absolutely so impressed by what they're doing, and they've had to do it very quickly. So schools will keep changing a little bit. They'll find out what's working, what's not working, and they'll change it a little bit. So expect to see changes in the kind of schedule and in the content. But I think expecting your child to be in front of the screen from the beginning of the school day at 9 a.m. till 3 p.m, that's definitely not going to work. No child can do that, and it's not healthy. So we'll be coming in and out of school content during the day, and the child might even do their schoolwork later in the day, and that's okay. Schools are being very flexible in this.
And what resources are available for Australian schools to support parents?
Yeah, so I've developed a resource for all Australian schools to be able to support parents, and in that it's ways to help your child deal with the huge amount of misinformation online about COVID, some learning apps that they can use, great ways to do technology projects at home like coding and other technology projects, information for parents to support children. How do you deal with the huge amount of stress? How do you deal with everyone being online and being at home together? So it's a course that's online for parents. It's called Tech Clever. And if you'd like to do it, contact your school, and then they just need to contact me and I give the school access to it.
A lot of new learning opportunities for everybody at the moment during this tricky time.